Millions of Americans tuned into the recent debate between President Biden and former President Trump, but both candidates' performances left a lot of Americans, and I mean a lot of Americans, feeling uncertain.
ABC's George Stephanopoulos sat down for an exclusive interview with Biden, the first one since the debate. Here to talk about how this could all impact the race for the White House is Chief Washington Correspondent Jonathan Karl and former DNC Chair Donna Brazile. Thanks to both of you for joining us. Donna, we'll start with you, and let's just cut to the chase. Did that interview with George help or hurt Biden?
I thought it was very important that he's, not only talked to George, answer the questions, but more importantly, we're now doing a health and wellness checkup on both candidates as a result of the debate. For Democrats, we want to make sure that the president still is vibrant. He's out there working each and every day, working in Pennsylvania, working in Wisconsin. And of course, he's back in Washington, D.C. to work with our allies from NATO. So, yes, it was a very important conversation, discussion. Did it ease all of the doubts? No. Did it stop all of the leaking? No. The whining, the crying, the whatever you want to call it. I'm not going to use bedwetting because I heard the pens are very expensive these days. But I do know this. Here's what I know. The president is defined. He just sent a letter to members of Congress. So as they arrive in Washington, D.C. later today and tomorrow, they'll be greeted with a letter from the President of the United States, who I think is not just speaking for himself, he's speaking for the 14 million voters who selected him in the primary to be our party's nominee.
So, John, are we seeing any changes in polling numbers after this interview?
Well, you've seen some conflicting numbers in the polls. You've seen some polls that have gone down. New York Times Siena poll showed Donald Trump with a considerable lead outside of the margin of error on the national level. There was a poll just over the weekend from Bloomberg in the battleground states that actually showed that Biden's actually tightened a little bit, that he's now ahead, again, within the margin of error in 2 of the 7 key battleground states. So, conflicting numbers, but the bottom line in all of it, is that if you look at the polling, Joe Biden is on a trajectory to lose to Donald Trump. The very poll that the Democrats are now, or at least Biden Democrats are pointing to, the Bloomberg poll, showed him down outside the margin of error in Pennsylvania. Guess what? If he loses Pennsylvania, if Joe Biden loses Pennsylvania, he's not going to be elected president again.
A lot of concern out there, Donna, for the president's age, his acuity, and he was adamant in that interview with George that he would not submit to an independent medical evaluation. Do you think at this point it would be good for the president to do that?
Absolutely not. And let me tell you why. The president is probably the only American who can get a doctor's appointment without even picking up the phone. He travels with a doctor. There's a doctor on call 24/7. I know that because I was Al Gore's campaign manager, and I happen to travel with the vice president, and there's always a doctor. I think once you start submitting to all of these various tests that the media, others, your opponents want you to take, then what's next? We want to make sure that we check his cholesterol. Should we check his blood pressure? I mean, his vitamin D content. I think it's important that the president continue to focus on the one thing that the American people elected him to do, and that is to keep us safe, prosperous, and strong. Look, I'm not one of those Democrats that's in denial. The debate performance was a wake-up call. It really was a gut punch. And Democrats have to get out there, redouble their efforts, and act as if we got to fight for this. John is right. The polls right now are going to give you a split view. Some say he's stronger, some say he's weaker. But look, I'm taking a lesson from the playbook over in France. The far right was supposed to clean the table, and yesterday they woke up and found out, guess what? They're not that hot. They're not that popular. So keep working, keep focusing on the next 120 days, and I guarantee you President Biden will once again fool all of the hesitant people out there. He's underestimated before. He's going to do a good job over the next 120 days.
And, John, that's what President Biden's family is saying. They're saying keep working, stay in the fight. What do you think it's going to take for him to change his mind if he wants to?
Look, it's Biden's decision. It's only his decision. So you asked the right question. What would it take for him to change his mind? I think it would be the Democratic leadership, Chuck Schumer, Hakeem Jeffries, Nancy Pelosi, no longer in leadership, but the conscience of the party in many ways, and of course his good friend Joe Clyburn, who really got him the nomination in 2020. For them to say, hey, maybe it's time to go. That hasn't happened yet. But you know what else hasn't happened? We haven't seen Nancy Pelosi and Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer come out and say, hell no, Biden's got to stay in. They've been keeping their powder dry.
He seemed pretty.
And let's see how it plays out.
Biden seemed pretty adamant in that interview with George that those leaders would not come out and pressure him to step down. But Donna, you mentioned 120 days left. What does it take for the Biden campaign to turn this crisis around?
They got to go out there and light the fire under the American people that this is about freedom. This is about making sure that we have a constitution over the next 248 years. And it's about making sure that we protect our freedoms. And we have to campaign on those issues that the American people care about. And the president has to lead this. Now, look, we all know that if the president is unwilling or not able to lead, we got a bench, we got a team. But the most important thing is that we got to focus on the American people and make them understand what's at stake in this election.
The clock is ticking, and we are all watching. Chief Washington Correspondent Jonathan Karl and former DNC Chair Donna Brazile, thanks to you both for being with us. We appreciate it.